Imagine for a moment a man walking the earth, so close to the divine that he is taken, not by death, but by God himself, to witness the very structure of the heavens. A journey that transcends time, space, and human understanding. This man, Enoch, did not merely glimpse the celestial realms. He was shown the hidden architecture of the cosmos, 10 distinct heavens, each a realm of unimaginable order and holiness. What he saw reveals a divine reality far beyond the grasp of ordinary sight, a reality that speaks directly to the profound majesty of God's creation and the meticulous governance of the universe. Enoch's journey is not simply an ancient story, but a divine revelation preserved in the depths of Scripture and apocryphal writings alike. The Book of Enoch, though hidden for centuries and only recently rediscovered in its full breadth, unfolds mysteries that many have never encountered. It unveils a heaven layered like a vast palace, each heaven with its own inhabitants, its own role, and its own divine purpose. These are not mere visions of clouds and angels. They are a cosmic blueprint of the divine order itself. What Enoch saw challenges common perceptions of the afterlife and the celestial hierarchy. He reveals a realm where angels serve as custodians of the cosmos, where the forces of light and order confront chaos, and where the very fabric of time and space is governed by laws set by the Most High. His vision reveals that heaven is not a singular place, but a complex, ordered structure, pulsating with life, purpose, and divine justice. Few have ever glimpsed such truths, and fewer still have understood their significance. This revelation carries with it the weight of spiritual authority, demanding us to reconsider our understanding of God's universe. The heavens are alive with celestial beings, messengers, watchers, and righteous judges, each assigned to a specific task in the divine administration. As we embark on this exploration of what Enoch saw, prepare to move beyond earthly limitations into a cosmic panorama where the boundaries between heaven and earth blur, and where the majesty of God's creation is revealed in ways both awe-inspiring and deeply instructive. This is a journey not just through space, but through divine truth itself, a call to behold the grandeur and holiness that govern all things visible and invisible. This narrative invites you to see with new eyes, to understand that the heavens are not distant or unreachable, but intimately connected to the story of humanity and the unfolding plan of redemption. What follows is an account that illuminates the spiritual realms, their inhabitants, and their roles in the divine order. A revelation that has the power to transform how we perceive God's presence in our world. Who was Enoch? To many, he is simply a name, a brief mention in ancient genealogies, a footnote in the early chapters of Scripture. But Enoch was far more than that. He was a prophet, a mystic, a man whose life was so intertwined with the divine that the Scriptures say he walked with God, a phrase loaded with profound meaning. He is the only human recorded to have been taken into heaven without experiencing death, a unique and sacred passage that sets him apart as an unparalleled cosmic traveler. Enoch's story is not just about his earthly life. It is about a revelation so deep, so transformative, that it transcends time and tradition. The Book of Enoch, a mysterious ancient text attributed to him, was for centuries hidden from most religious canons. Its contents were considered too profound, too unsettling for common teaching. Yet this very book unlocks a vision of the cosmos that offers clarity on divine judgment, the origin of angels, and the unfolding of God's plan beyond the veil of the visible world. This concealment itself points to the extraordinary nature of Enoch's vision, one that could alter fundamental beliefs about heaven, the spiritual realm, and humanity's place within it. For many, the Book of Enoch remained a secret treasure, rediscovered only in recent times through ancient manuscripts and scholarly work. Enoch is, therefore, not just a historical or biblical figure, but the ultimate bridge between earth and the divine. His journey into the heavens is a journey beyond human limitation, into realms where the mysteries of creation are laid bare, and where the fullness of God's glory is revealed in stages. He stands as a witness to the hidden order of the universe, a guide who opens a window into the very heart of the divine realm. As we prepare to follow his path, It's vital to understand that Enoch's experience is the foundation of the vision we are about to explore. A vision that stretches across 10 heavens, each with its own significance and inhabitants, each reflecting a facet of God's sovereign design. Enoch, the cosmic traveler, beckons us to look up beyond the stars and to grasp the vastness and holiness of the universe as God intended it to be seen. Picture the heavens, not as a singular distant realm, but as a vast, intricate structure composed of 10 distinct heavens, each layered upon the other like steps ascending to the very throne of the Almighty. This concept, revealed through the vision of Enoch, unfolds a universe far richer and more complex than most have imagined. Each heaven is its own unique domain, more profound, more powerful, and more radiant than the one below it, forming a divine hierarchy of spiritual realities that stretch from the familiar earthly realm all the way to the ultimate presence of God Himself. These 10 heavens are not merely abstract or symbolic. They represent real, ordered layers of existence, each with a specific role in the divine administration of the cosmos. The first heavens are closer to the earthly realm, realms where the natural world intersects with the spiritual, places of meteorological phenomena, of angels who govern the winds, of cosmic gates that control the movements of the stars and the cycles of time. As one ascends through these layers, the realities become increasingly sublime, homes to angelic hosts of incredible power and holiness, to watchers who observe and govern, to realms where divine law is administered and cosmic justice upheld. Higher still are the heavens that transcend all created things, where the spiritual beings closest to God reside, where the light of God's glory is fully manifest, and where eternal worship and divine counsel take place. The 10th heaven, the pinnacle of this cosmic ascent, is the very throne room of God, an indescribable reality of unapproachable light, eternal peace, and supreme authority. It is the source from which all creation flows and the center of divine rule over all things seen and unseen. This vision of 10 heavens reveals a universe alive with purpose and meaning. It challenges the simplistic views of heaven as a distant paradise and invites us instead to understand it as a complex, living realm governed by divine order and inhabited by beings of immense holiness and responsibility. Each layer reflects a facet of God's character, His justice, His mercy, His sovereignty, and together they form a cosmic harmony that sustains all of creation. As we prepare to journey through each of these heavens, you will come to see why this revelation has captivated mystics, prophets, and seekers for millennia. It offers a map of the spiritual universe, a framework for understanding how heaven and earth are connected, and a glimpse into the divine reality that undergirds all existence. By the end of this exploration, the vision that once seemed distant and mysterious will become a vivid panorama, one that enriches our faith, expands our understanding, and deepens our awe for the God who reigns supreme over all. This is more than a story. It is an invitation to perceive the cosmos with new eyes, to recognize that the heavens are structured, purposeful, and inhabited by a divine order that reflects the very heart of God. The journey through Enoch's 10 heavens will reveal the profound spiritual truths hidden beyond the veil, truths that have fascinated and transformed those who have dared to look upward throughout the ages. As Enoch ascended into the first heaven, the very air shifted around him, and he found himself surrounded by an atmospheric realm unlike anything he had ever known. This heaven was not a place of ethereal beauty or eternal light. Rather, it was the realm where the natural and spiritual worlds intersected, where the forces of weather, clouds, and winds operated in a spiritual harmony that humans could scarcely comprehend. The air was thick with swirling clouds, but not the kind that are mere vapor in the earthly sky. These clouds were alive, pulsating with energy and shifting like living creatures, carrying with them the whispers of the divine. The sky above was vast, but it was not a tranquil blue expanse. Instead, it was a rich tapestry of ever-changing hues, streaks of gold, purple, and deep blues, each color symbolizing the hidden workings of the universe, the mysteries of the natural world held in balance by heavenly forces. The winds that swept through this first heaven were not mere breezes. They were strong, deliberate forces that seemed to hum with a divine purpose, carrying the breath of life and the voice of God. In the distance, Enoch could see figures moving within the clouds. These were not humans, but angelic beings, spirits who served as the governors of the natural world. Their wings were vast, shimmering with a celestial light, their forms both beautiful and awe-inspiring. They were not the glowing, radiant beings one might imagine in popular depictions of angels, but rather beings whose forms were fluid and ever-changing, as if their very essence was made of the winds and the clouds themselves. The first beings Enoch encountered were the spirits of the wind. These angels were the ones who commanded the air, the storms, the currents of wind that swept across the earth. They were responsible for maintaining the balance of weather, directing the rains, and ensuring the stability of the Earth's atmosphere. Some of them appeared as colossal figures, vast, towering beings whose movements caused the winds to roar with divine power. Others were more subtle in their presence, appearing as whispers in the air, their voices indistinct yet full of authority, guiding the natural world with unseen hands. Enoch also saw beings who were entrusted with the lightning and the thunder, angels who controlled the storms. These beings were not intimidating in their appearance, but exuded an authority and strength that left no room for doubt about the power they wielded. As they moved, flashes of light and bolts of lightning crackled in the sky, their presence causing the very atmosphere to vibrate with energy. Enoch could feel the raw power of these spirits, but he also sensed an incredible order in their actions, a divine harmony that kept the world in balance. The atmosphere of the first heaven was both overwhelming and awe-inspiring. The natural world, with its cycles of weather and change, was governed not by random chance but by divine order. The weather wasn't just a natural phenomenon to be studied by scientists, it was an expression of the heavenly will, an active, ongoing creation that echoed the glory of God. As Enoch watched the spirits of wind, lightning, and thunder at work, he realized that the entire universe was infused with spiritual life, each part playing its role in the grand design. What struck Enoch the most, however, was the realization that the natural world, as chaotic and unpredictable as it might seem to humans, was under the watchful eye of divine beings. The winds, the rain, the thunder, and the lightning were not forces of nature to be feared, but rather divine instruments, each directed by the will of God. The angels in this first heaven were not detached from the world below, but rather actively engaged in maintaining the harmony of creation. Their roles were vital, as they ensured that the natural world would continue to function according to the divine plan. This was only the beginning of Enoch's journey, but already he was beginning to see the intricate workings of God's universe. Each heaven would reveal more. Each layer would peel back more of the mysteries of the divine. And in the first heaven, Enoch's vision was already stretching the limits of his understanding. An understanding that would continue to grow as he ascended further into the divine realms. As Enoch ascended further into the heavens, he arrived at a realm that was unlike the atmospheric beauty of the first heaven. The air here felt heavier, charged with a tension that seemed to permeate everything. This was the second heaven, a place of deep cosmic significance, one where the forces of rebellion and divine judgment intersected. It was here that Enoch encountered the Watchers, fallen angels who had once been tasked with guiding humanity but had instead chosen to defy the Creator. The second heaven was a place caught in a state of cosmic conflict. It was not a realm of peace or harmony, but one of torment, isolation, and regret. The spirits that inhabited this domain were not the radiant, life-giving beings Enoch had seen in the first heaven. Instead, they were dark, shadowy figures, bound in chains of eternal regret. These were the fallen angels, beings of immense power who had descended from their rightful place in the higher heavens to interact with humanity in ways they were never meant to. The most infamous of these fallen angels were the Watchers. These beings had been sent to Earth to watch over humanity, to teach and guide the human race. However, instead of fulfilling their divine purpose, they began to lust after the daughters of men, leading them to descend to Earth, break their sacred vows, and take human wives. This act of rebellion consequences far greater than they could have foreseen. Their union with human women resulted in the birth of the Nephilim, giants whose existence brought untold chaos and corruption to the earth. Enoch was shown these watchers in their fallen state, trapped in the second heaven, forever imprisoned for their transgressions. The angels were bound by chains of fiery substance, their faces filled with sorrow and remorse. The sounds of their lamentations filled the air, voices that cried out in anguish, realizing the irrevocable nature of their rebellion. They had been cast down from the higher realms and were awaiting their final judgment, a judgment that would come at the appointed time. Among these fallen angels was a group of leaders who were specifically identified by Enoch. They were the ringleaders of the rebellion, the ones who had led the others astray. These leaders were powerful beings, once known for their wisdom and beauty, but now they were twisted in form and spirit, their once glorious wings now tattered and blackened. Their eyes were filled with a burning, eternal regret, for they understood the gravity of their actions. They had corrupted humanity, teaching forbidden knowledge, teaching mankind to make weapons of war, to engage in sorcery, and to turn away from God's laws. One of the most powerful revelations Enoch received in the second heaven was witnessing the final judgment of these fallen angels. He was shown a vision of the future, a day when these angels would stand before the throne of God, where their deeds would be weighed and their punishment delivered. The watchers were to be bound and cast into the deepest, most desolate abyss, a place of eternal darkness where they would be held until the end of days. But it was not just their punishment that struck Enoch. It was the moral and spiritual lessons embedded in this vision. The second heaven revealed a deep truth about the nature of rebellion against divine order. The watchers had been given immense power, but with that power came great responsibility. They were not meant to interfere with the natural order of humanity, and yet their desire to transcend their assigned role led them to commit an act of arrogance and sin. Their fall was a stark reminder of the dangers of pride and disobedience, of how even the most powerful beings are susceptible to the allure of temptation. Enoch's vision in the second heaven revealed the critical importance of maintaining divine boundaries. The watchers had overstepped these boundaries, believing that they could reshape creation to their own desires, and in doing so, they had caused destruction not just for themselves, but for humanity as well. The giants they created, Nephilim, brought corruption, violence, and chaos into the world, a lasting reminder of the consequences of sin. Enoch also witnessed the moral consequences of these fallen angels' decisions. The second heaven was a warning about the cost of rebellion, not just for the individual, but for the world at large. The actions of the watchers did not only affect them, their sin spilled over into the world, leaving behind a legacy of suffering. This vision made Enoch realize how deeply interconnected the spiritual realm and the earthly realm were. The moral decay that had followed the watchers' rebellion was a testament to how the actions of spiritual beings could influence and shape the fate of humanity. The lessons from the second heaven were clear. God's order is not to be tampered with. Those who seek to pervert his design will face judgment, and the consequences of their actions will echo throughout eternity. The watchers, in their arrogance, had sought to elevate themselves above the divine plan, and in their fall, they had shown Enoch and all of creation the dangers of stepping outside the boundaries set by God. As Enoch gazed upon these fallen angels, bound, awaiting their ultimate fate, he understood the gravity of their choice. This was a place of judgment, but also a place of warning. It was a realm where divine justice was being served, but also a realm that spoke to the importance of humility, obedience, and respect for the Creator's design. In this second heaven, Enoch's journey became not just a spiritual exploration, but a stark lesson in the consequences of defying divine order. This was a heaven where the echoes of rebellion rang loud and clear, urging all who would listen to heed the lessons of the past and align themselves with the divine will. The moral lessons of the second heaven remain timeless. Pride leads to a fall, rebellion leads to judgment, and only by walking in the ways of righteousness can one avoid the eternal consequences of sin. As Enoch ascended into the third heaven, he felt the oppressive weight of the second heaven fall away, replaced by an overwhelming sense of peace and beauty. This was no longer a place of conflict, rebellion, or judgment. Instead, the third heaven unfolded before him as a realm of divine serenity, an ethereal paradise that stood in stark contrast to the tensions of the previous realms. Here, Enoch was immersed in an environment that exuded harmony, holiness, and divine presence. The landscape of the third heaven was breathtaking in its perfection. Vast gardens stretched out before him, their beauty beyond anything the human eye could ever imagine. Trees stood tall, their trunks and branches adorned with blossoms of every color imaginable, exuding a fragrance so pure that it seemed to carry the very essence of divine love. The air was heavy with a sweetness that seemed to cleanse the spirit, refreshing Enoch's soul and filling him with a deep, unspoken joy. The gardens were lush and vibrant, their leaves shimmering with golden hues, as if kissed by eternal light. There were flowing rivers of crystal-clear water, winding gently through the landscape, their waters sparkling with a celestial glow. These rivers did not just flow with water, but with life itself, pure, untainted by the corruption of the earthly world. The sound of the water was soothing, like a chorus of angels singing a lullaby to the weary soul. Enoch felt as though the very essence of life was flowing through the rivers, bringing renewal to every living thing in this paradise. Beyond the gardens, there were holy places, sacred areas that radiated divine light. These places were not meant for ordinary beings, but for those who had walked in righteousness during their time on earth. The architecture in these holy places was magnificent, with golden altars, incense-filled chambers, and walls made of precious stones that gleamed with an otherworldly light. The atmosphere was thick with the presence of the divine, as if God himself had made his dwelling here, with his spirit permeating every corner of this peaceful domain. Enoch's eyes were drawn to the beings in this realm, righteous souls who had passed from the earthly realm, now residing in the paradise of the third heaven. These were the saints, the holy ones, the righteous who had remained faithful and obedient to the divine will throughout their lives. Their faces shone with the light of eternal joy, and their forms glowed with a holiness that was both beautiful and awe-inspiring. They moved with grace, their steps light, as if walking in harmony with the very heart of the universe. There was no sorrow, no pain, and no suffering in this realm, only peace, serenity, and the knowledge that those who resided here had found their reward in the divine presence. Enoch witnessed these holy souls engaged in acts of worship, their voices raised in harmonious praise to God, their spirits fully immersed in the beauty of his presence. It was a place where divine love was not just known, but felt deeply, where the soul found its true rest. The contrast between the third heaven and the earlier heavens was striking. The first heaven, though beautiful in its own way, was filled with the raw, untamed forces of nature, governed by angelic beings with specific duties to uphold the natural order. The second heaven was a realm of rebellion and judgment, filled with the cries of fallen angels awaiting their punishment. But the third heaven was different. It was a realm of pure divine reward, where the righteous who had walked in faith were now at peace, basking in the presence of their Creator. It was a reward for those who had lived in alignment with God's will, a place where divine justice had been met with divine mercy. What made this heaven so significant was its role as a place of divine presence. Unlike the previous heavens, where angels performed duties or where judgment was being meted out, the third heaven was where God's presence was most felt. It was a place where the faithful could rest, surrounded by divine peace and eternal beauty. Here they were no longer in the realm of struggle or conflict, but were able to dwell in the fullness of God's glory. This realm also revealed the deeper truth that God's kingdom is not merely a distant promise for the future, but a present reality for those who are found righteous. The third heaven is a place of hope, a place where the weary soul finds solace and rest. It is a realm where the longing of the human heart for peace, for healing, and for communion with the divine is fully realized. Those who inhabit this paradise are not just awaiting something greater in the future. They are living in the fullness of eternal joy, basking in the presence of the Most High. For Enoch, the third heaven was not just a vision of beauty. It was a profound revelation of the reward that awaits the faithful. It was a reminder that those who persevere in righteousness will one day find themselves in the presence of the divine, experiencing a peace and joy that transcends all understanding. This was the ultimate reward for a life lived in faith, a divine paradise where the soul could rest in the embrace of God's love and experience the fullness of His glory. As Enoch continued his journey, the significance of the third heaven remained clear in his heart. It was not just a place of reward, but a testament to the reality of God's kingdom, a kingdom where peace reigns, where the righteous dwell, and where the divine presence fills all things with eternal joy. As Enoch ascended into the fourth heaven, he entered a realm that seemed to radiate with an even more majestic and awe-inspiring presence. This was not a place of quiet peace or serene beauty, but a realm of powerful angelic beings, celestial administrators who governed the cosmic order with absolute authority. Here, divine justice and the perfect order of creation were executed with precision and strength, and the heavens seemed to hum with the divine will that kept all things in motion. The atmosphere of the fourth heaven was unlike any other. The air was thick with energy, powerful currents of light and sound that seemed to vibrate with the authority of the divine. The very structure of this heaven appeared to be built on a foundation of law and cosmic governance. Enoch could feel the sheer weight of divine justice in this place, as though every action, every decision made by the beings of this realm was carefully measured and weighed by divine law. The beings Enoch encountered here were unlike any he had seen in the previous heavens. These were the archangels and celestial administrators, towering beings of immense power and wisdom. Their forms were majestic, glowing with an inner light that seemed to emanate from the core of their being. They were not just beautiful, but terrifying in their authority, their very presence exuding the strength of the divine order they upheld. Each archangel was assigned a specific domain of governance, whether it was overseeing the movements of the stars, the balance of natural laws, or the enforcement of divine justice across the heavens and the earth. Enoch watched as one such archangel, Uriel, who was responsible for overseeing the celestial bodies, guided the movements of the stars with an elegance that was both deliberate and awe-inspiring. The stars themselves seemed to move in obedience to his will, as if they were threads woven into the tapestry of God's divine plan. It was as if the archangels were the stewards of the cosmos, ensuring that every part of creation adhered to the divine blueprint. There were also beings responsible for the cosmic balances, the administrators of divine justice. These celestial beings ensured that the natural laws of the universe were kept in perfect order. If any force, angelic or earthly, strayed from the divine plan, it was these administrators who enacted correction, realigning all things according to God's will. Their role was not just to punish but to restore balance, to ensure that the divine harmony of creation remained undisturbed. One of the most striking things Enoch witnessed was the intricate system of divine justice that governed the fourth heaven. Here, the angels did not act arbitrarily or without reason. Every act of divine intervention, every correction made, was in perfect alignment with God's greater purpose. These celestial beings were the very embodiment of the justice of God. Their actions were always tempered with righteousness and wisdom, ensuring that no force of disorder could ever disrupt the cosmic balance. Enoch saw angels holding court in a grand celestial hall, their majestic wings unfurled, their faces radiant with divine light. Here, they deliberated on the matters of the heavens, discussing the movements of stars, the governance of the earth, and the execution of God's justice. They were tasked with ensuring that all things in the heavens and on the earth were governed by divine principles of order, law, and justice. What struck Enoch most deeply was the understanding that in this fourth heaven there was no chaos. Every being, every force, no matter how great or small, was aligned with divine order. There was no room for rebellion, no room for disorder or lawlessness. The very fabric of this heaven seemed to pulse with the perfect governance of God, a governance that kept all things in perfect harmony. The moral lesson that emerged from the fourth heaven was clear. Divine order and justice are at the core of creation. Without these principles, the universe would descend into chaos. The angels and celestial administrators of this realm did not merely serve as overseers, but were the active agents of God's law, enacting justice, maintaining balance, and ensuring that the divine will was faithfully carried out across the cosmos. This realm was a testament to the strength and wisdom of divine governance, a place where the intricate workings of the universe were upheld by the unwavering hands of the angels. For Enoch, the fourth heaven revealed a profound truth about God's kingdom. That true justice is not about vengeance or retribution, but about restoring balance and keeping all things in their proper place. The angels here were not just executing commands. They were the stewards of God's divine order, ensuring that all things in heaven and earth remained in harmony with God's will. The fourth heaven, in its magnificence and structure, spoke to the unyielding righteousness of divine justice. A justice that sustains the cosmos, a justice that reflects the holiness of God Himself. In this realm, Enoch saw that the governance of God's universe is not arbitrary or haphazard, but deliberate, measured, and perfectly aligned with His divine purpose. This divine order, so carefully and lovingly maintained, was what ensured the ongoing harmony of creation. As Enoch gazed upon the celestial administrators of the fourth heaven, he understood that the universe itself is a reflection of the justice, wisdom, and love of the Creator. It was here that he truly began to grasp the scale of divine governance, an order that held all things together, guiding them toward their final, eternal fulfillment in God's divine plan. As Enoch ascended into the fifth heaven, he was enveloped by a realm of pure, unblemished light. This heaven was unlike any of the previous ones in its atmosphere and purpose. Here, the very air seemed to shimmer with divine radiance, and the entire realm was suffused with a golden light that was both comforting and awe-inspiring. It was as though the light itself carried with it the wisdom of the ages, illuminating not just the physical world, but the deepest mysteries of the cosmos. This was a realm of divine knowledge, wisdom, and cosmic secrets, a place where the profound truths of the universe were unveiled to those who were prepared to understand them. The beings in this realm were not merely angels of power or strength, but of wisdom. They were the keepers of divine knowledge, celestial beings whose purpose was to guard and share the secrets of the heavens and the mysteries of God's creation. Their forms were luminous, their eyes filled with the knowledge of eons, and their presence radiated an intellect that went beyond human comprehension. Enoch was shown the great library of the fifth heaven, an infinite repository of divine knowledge. It was not a library in the earthly sense, with shelves and books, but a vast expanse of glowing scrolls, each one containing a different aspect of cosmic wisdom. These scrolls were not written with ink or parchment. They were alive with energy, pulsing with the very essence of divine understanding. As Enoch gazed upon them, he could feel the immense weight of knowledge contained within each scroll, as if the mysteries of creation itself were bound within them, waiting to be unlocked. Enoch witnessed beings of immense wisdom, standing in reverence before these scrolls, each angel entrusted with a specific part of God's divine plan. They were the celestial scribes, who had recorded the cosmic truths and divine instructions that governed the universe. Their role was not merely to pass on information, but to ensure that divine knowledge was preserved and passed down to the worthy, so that it might be used to uphold the divine order. These angels were not merely disseminating knowledge. They were the keepers of sacred mysteries, entrusted with the responsibility to protect and reveal the deepest secrets of creation. Among the most fascinating things Enoch witnessed in this realm was a vast glowing crystal at the center of the library. This crystal was unlike anything he had seen before. It was perfectly transparent, yet seemed to contain an entire universe within it. As he gazed into the crystal, Enoch saw the unfolding of the entire cosmos, the creation of the heavens, the formation of the earth, and the unfolding of the divine plan from the beginning of time to its ultimate fulfillment in eternity. The crystal held the blueprint of all things, revealing to Enoch the intricate patterns and designs behind the universe's creation. It was as though the entire fabric of existence was reflected in this one object, a symbol of the divine intelligence that governed all. The beings of the fifth heaven were not only guardians of knowledge, but also guides for the soul's ascent. They were there to help Enoch understand the deeper truths of creation, to reveal to him how the physical world was intertwined with the spiritual realm. They spoke of the divine intelligence that permeates everything, the idea that everything in the universe, from the smallest atom to the largest star, was part of a grand divine design. This was not just knowledge for knowledge's sake, it was knowledge that had a purpose, to reveal the nature of God's mind and the profound mystery of His will. As Enoch continued to gaze upon the wisdom of the fifth heaven, he began to understand the spiritual symbolism that underpinned everything he was seeing. The light in his heaven was not just a physical phenomenon, it was a symbol of the divine illumination that comes when one aligns themselves with God's truth. The glowing scrolls were not just objects, they represented the sacred knowledge of God's will. Knowledge that was meant to guide and instruct, to lead the soul towards righteousness and divine understanding. The crystal at the center of the library symbolized the unity and interconnectedness of all creation. The fact that every part of the universe, no matter how small or large, is part of a greater whole designed by God. The fifth heaven was a place where the mysteries of the universe were not only revealed, but understood on a spiritual level. The knowledge contained within this realm was not meant for the self-serving or the prideful. It was meant for those who would use it to bring about greater harmony, understanding, and love in the world. It was a reminder that true wisdom comes from God, and that only by aligning oneself with divine knowledge can one come to understand the true nature of the universe. For Enoch, this heaven was a profound experience, a place where the veil between the seen and the unseen was lifted, where the deep secrets of the cosmos were laid bare. The divine light that filled this realm symbolized not just understanding but enlightenment, a spiritual awakening that illuminated the path towards God. The wisdom of the fifth heaven was a call to seek truth, to pursue knowledge not for personal gain, but for the glory of God and the betterment of creation. Enoch's journey through the fifth heaven was a reminder that the pursuit of wisdom and knowledge is a spiritual endeavor, a sacred journey towards understanding the divine will. It was a place where the deepest mysteries of the universe were not just revealed, but embraced with awe, reverence, and humility. The fifth heaven, in all its brilliance, stood as a testament to the fact that true knowledge is not just intellectual, but deeply spiritual, grounded in the understanding that all things come from God and are part of His divine plan. As Enoch ascended into the sixth heaven, he felt an overwhelming sense of authority and divine purpose. This realm was unlike any he had encountered before. It was a place of prophecy, spiritual revelation, and the unfolding of divine mysteries. The atmosphere was thick with the presence of God's sovereign will, a place where the very fabric of time and destiny seemed to intertwine, revealing the hidden truths of humanity's journey and the divine plan for the future. The sixth heaven was bathed in a radiant light, but it was not a light of pure beauty or peace like the third heaven. This light was intense, focused, and full of divine power. The air here felt heavier, as if every word spoken, every action taken, carried eternal weight. The realm was filled with prophetic visions, divine messages, and the revelations of the future, as if time itself was being laid bare before Enoch's eyes. It was a realm where the boundaries between past, present, and future dissolved, and the full sweep of human destiny was revealed in vivid clarity. In this realm, Enoch witnessed beings who were not just angels, but prophetic messengers, spirits whose role was to carry the will of God into the world, to reveal divine plans and purposes that were yet to unfold. These beings did not merely deliver messages, they shaped the future, ensuring that the divine plan for humanity moved forward according to God's eternal wisdom. Enoch saw these messengers as they moved through time, shaping the events of the world, guiding kings, prophets, and nations toward their destined ends. Their movements were subtle, yet powerful, often unseen by human eyes, but their influence was undeniable. Enoch was shown visions of the future, glimpses of events that would occur in the world long after his time. These were not vague or distant prophecies, but vivid, powerful images of the rise and fall of empires, of wars and peace, of suffering and redemption. Enoch saw the struggles of humanity, conflict, betrayal, and the pursuit of power. But he also saw the ultimate triumph of righteousness, of divine justice being carried out in the fullness of time. He saw the final judgment and the restoration of all things, the ultimate victory of light over darkness, truth over falsehood. What struck Enoch most deeply was the realization that humanity's destiny was not arbitrary or left to chance. The divine plan was being worked out with precision, and every event, every choice made by mankind was somehow woven into the grand tapestry of God's will. Even when the world seemed to be falling into chaos, even when evil seemed to triumph, Enoch saw that nothing was beyond God's control. Every moment of human history, every individual life was part of a greater divine narrative, and ultimately, God's purposes would prevail. In the sixth heaven, Enoch also saw the role of prophecy, not as a mere prediction of future events, but as a divine invitation to align with God's plan. The prophets who were sent into the world were not just messengers of doom or warning, but guides, showing humanity the path toward salvation, urging them to repent, to turn back to the Creator, and to live in accordance with His will. Enoch saw how the words of the prophets carried the weight of divine authority, how their messages were not just foretellings of the future, but a call to action, a call to align with the divine purposes of God. This was a profound lesson for Enoch, as he realized that humanity's destiny was never truly out of their hands. It was always part of a greater plan, and through the guidance of prophecy, people were given the opportunity to choose whether they would align with that divine plan or turn away from it. The sense of divine authority in this realm was palpable. Prophecies were not mere suggestions, but commands from the Most High, designed to guide humanity toward their ultimate purpose. The spiritual lesson that Enoch took from the sixth heaven was that human destiny is not random or accidental. It is shaped by the divine will, and every individual is part of a larger story. Prophecy, in this sense, was not just about foretelling the future, but about revealing the divine order of things, showing humanity their place within the vast tapestry of creation. The prophecies revealed in this realm spoke to the truth that God has a plan for the world, and that every individual, every nation, plays a role in that plan, whether they realize it or not. This realm also served as a reminder that humanity's choices matter. While divine authority and sovereignty ruled the sixth heaven, Enoch saw that the choices made on earth had lasting consequences. The future was not entirely predetermined. Human actions, guided by or in defiance of divine revelation, would shape the course of events. The prophetic messages delivered from this realm were a call to take responsibility, to align one's life with the greater plan, and to walk in the path of righteousness. As Enoch's journey through the sixth heaven continued, he gained a deeper understanding of his own role in the divine plan. He saw that his actions, like those of every other person, would play a part in the unfolding of the future. The prophets who had gone before him, and those who would follow, had all been called to guide humanity toward the fulfillment of God's will. The messages of prophecy were not only about foretelling the future, they were about shaping it, about helping people understand their place in the divine story. The sixth heaven, with its emphasis on prophecy, divine authority, and human destiny, revealed a profound truth, that all of creation is moving toward a divinely ordained conclusion, and humanity is invited to participate in this cosmic narrative. Through the gift of prophecy, individuals are given the opportunity to align their lives with God's will, to understand the larger purpose of their existence, and to help bring about the fulfillment of God's eternal plan for the world. As Enoch ascended into the seventh heaven, he entered a realm so sublime, so saturated with divine glory, that words could hardly capture the magnitude of its magnificence. This was the heaven closest to God's throne, the highest and holiest realm in the cosmic hierarchy. The very atmosphere was thick with the tangible presence of the Almighty, and every part of the seventh heaven seemed to reverberate with the power, mystery, and majesty of God Himself. Enoch found himself standing in a realm of pure holiness, where the boundaries between the divine and the earthly were nearly non-existent. This was the realm where the full force of God's presence could be felt, and where His eternal glory was on display in ways that transcended understanding. The throne room of the seventh heaven was beyond description. It was not merely a room, but an expansive space that seemed to stretch infinitely, illuminated by a radiant, blinding light that emanated directly from God's presence. This light was not like any earthly light. It was pure and uncontainable, radiating with a brilliance that left Enoch breathless. The light seemed to pulse with life and energy, radiating out in waves that washed over every being, every part of creation within this heaven. There were no shadows here, only the blinding, eternal brilliance of God's glory. It was a light that did not harm but healed, transformed, and revealed the very nature of God's divine essence. At the center of this celestial throne room stood God's throne, a magnificent structure that seemed to float in the air, held up by no visible means other than the sheer power of God's will. The throne was not like anything Enoch had ever seen on earth. It was a majestic and overwhelming sight, glowing with unearthly radiance. The throne itself appeared to be made of a material that transcended earthly elements, shimmering and ever-changing, as though it were crafted from light itself. From this throne, the divine will of God was spoken, and from here, all of creation was governed. Surrounding the throne were the highest of angels, beings of incredible power and holiness. These angels were not the familiar messengers Enoch had seen in the other heavens. These were seraphim and cherubim, beings whose forms were incomprehensible in their beauty and majesty. Their wings stretched outward, immense and radiant, each one glowing with the light of God's holiness. Their faces were veiled, for the glory of God was so overwhelming that to look upon it directly would consume any created being. Their role was to stand in the presence of God, to worship Him continually, and to carry out His divine commands. Their voices, when they spoke, were like a symphony of praise, filled with reverence, awe, and the knowledge of the eternal. These angels were not merely passive witnesses to God's glory, but active participants in the divine work of creation and governance. Enoch saw them moving in perfect harmony, their actions coordinated with the will of God, each one performing its role with flawless precision. They were not just creatures of beauty, they were beings of purpose, formed to reflect the glory of God and to enact His will on earth and in the heavens. Their presence was a testimony to the divine order that governed all things, a reminder that everything in creation existed to serve the eternal purposes of the Creator. As Enoch stood in awe, surrounded by this overwhelming vision of God's throne room, he was filled with a profound sense of humility and reverence. The glory of God was so radiant that it humbled him, and yet there was also a deep peace in knowing that this was the realm of divine justice, love, and mercy. The beauty of the angels, the radiant light, and the holy perfection of the throne room all pointed to one truth: that God is the source of all that is good, pure, and true. Everything in the seventh heaven was a reflection of His perfect nature, and all things in the cosmos were governed by His holy will. In this realm, Enoch was also shown the profound mystery of God's existence. He realized that, despite the beauty and power of the seventh heaven, this realm was still only a part of the infinite nature of God's being. The throne room was the closest heaven to God's presence, but even it could not fully contain the totality of who God was. The mystery of God's nature was so deep, so vast, that even this heaven could not hold it completely. What Enoch encountered in the seventh heaven was the overwhelming glory and majesty of the Creator, a glimpse into the incomprehensible depth of his holiness and eternal existence. The profound lesson of the seventh heaven was the realization that all things in creation point back to God's ultimate authority and power. This heaven was not just a place of beauty. It was a realm where the divine will was made manifest, where the majesty of God's throne was on full display. It was here that Enoch understood the central truth of creation, that God is the sovereign ruler of all, and that everything exists to glorify him. Enoch left the seventh heaven with a deeper understanding of God's glory. He realized that the closer one drew to the throne of God, the more overwhelming his presence became. The seventh heaven, with its radiant throne room, its celestial beings, and its divine light, was the closest Enoch had come to the fullness of God's power and majesty. It was a realm that left him in awe, humbled by the immense mystery of God's divine nature and filled with a deep reverence for the eternal glory of the Creator. The seventh heaven was a reminder of the ultimate truth of the universe, that all things, from the highest angels to the smallest particles of creation, are held together by the will and glory of God. This was the realm where the full radiance of divine authority shone brightest, where the ultimate mystery of God's being was both revealed and concealed in the light of his infinite glory. And for Enoch, this experience was an indelible mark on his soul, one that would shape his understanding of God and his kingdom forever. As Enoch's journey continued, he ascended beyond the boundaries of the seventh heaven into realms that defied even the most sacred understandings of the cosmos. These final three heavens, the eighth, ninth, and 10th, were the ultimate mystery, realms beyond the grasp of human comprehension, beyond the very limits of creation itself. The light that emanated from these heavens was not like anything seen before. It was not radiant in the way the lower heavens had been. Instead, it was a profound, unfathomable darkness, not the absence of light, but a divine eternal mystery, so deep and so full that even the light of the stars was swallowed by its vastness. These realms represented the highest and most sacred areas of divine reality, places where the very fabric of creation began to blur into the infinite expanse of God's eternal being. Enoch's senses were overwhelmed as he entered these final heavens. What he experienced could not be fully articulated in words, for the eighth, ninth, and 10th heavens were beyond all known dimensions of existence. These were not places where time and space functioned as they did on earth, or even in the lower heavens. They were places where the very nature of existence was redefined, where the limits of what is possible and impossible were stretched to their breaking points. The eighth heaven, the realm of cosmic harmony. The eighth heaven, which Enoch entered first, was a realm so vast that it could not be measured in terms of distance or time. The very concept of measurement seemed to break down in this space. Enoch described it as a place where all things, light, sound, motion, and being, were perfectly harmonized. This was not harmony as humans understand it, as mere balance or proportion. This was a profound, cosmic symphony of existence, where every particle, every being, every movement was in complete alignment with the divine will. The air here pulsed with a rhythm that resonated deep within Enoch's soul, as though the entire realm itself was vibrating with the music of creation, orchestrated by the divine hand. In this heaven, Enoch saw angels, not as individual beings, but as collective forces of cosmic order. These were not the messengers or warriors he had encountered in the lower heavens, but beings who represented aspects of creation itself. They moved through the space of the eighth heaven in synchronized patterns, their movements contributing to the cosmic dance that held all things in place. These angels were not just servants of God, but embodiments of his will and purpose, their very existence a reflection of his infinite wisdom and design. The most striking aspect of this realm was the absence of chaos or even conflict. There were no storms, no trials, no need for judgment or correction. It was a place of perfect order, where every aspect of the universe was functioning exactly as it should. It was as though the eighth heaven was the blueprint for all of creation, a realm of absolute perfection, untouched by imperfection, a vision of what the entire cosmos would one day become in its final glorified state. The ninth heaven, the realm of divine wisdom and unfathomable truths. The ninth heaven, as Enoch ascended to it, was even more mysterious than the eighth. If the eighth heaven represented cosmic order, the ninth represented divine wisdom. A realm where the secrets of the universe were not just revealed, but held in profound stillness, waiting to be understood by those who were capable of receiving such knowledge. The air here was thick with the weight of ancient truths, truths that had existed since the dawn of creation, but which were too vast for any mortal to grasp. In this heaven, Enoch witnessed beings who were not angels in the traditional sense, but archangels, beings who were embodiments of universal truths. They were not personal entities, but rather, they were the personifications of principles such as time, space, eternity, and divine justice. Their forms shifted constantly, as if they were made of the very laws of existence, moving fluidly between states that Enoch could not comprehend. These beings spoke not in words but in pure knowledge, conveying truths to Enoch not through language, but through a direct transmission of understanding. The experience was overwhelming, for the knowledge of the ninth heaven was not something Enoch could simply learn, but something he had to absorb into his very being, and it left him awestruck and humbled. Enoch was shown the deepest truths about the nature of God and his divine plan. He saw the eternal purpose behind creation and the intricate relationship between God and his creation. In this heaven, Enoch was allowed to perceive the mind of God, not as an intellectual exercise, but as a deep existential immersion into the very heart of divine wisdom. This vision was so overwhelming that Enoch could barely process it. He was shown the vast scope of creation, from the smallest atom to the largest galaxy, and how all things were intertwined in the mind of God. What Enoch could grasp from the ninth heaven was the profound truth that all things, time, space, matter, and spirit, were reflections of God's eternal wisdom. This realm was a place where divine understanding permeated everything, and yet it was still a place of mystery, because no being, not even the angels, could fully comprehend the depths of God's knowledge. The ninth heaven revealed that there was always more to God's wisdom than could ever be understood, an infinite well of truth that no mind could ever fully drink from. The tenth heaven, the realm of God's unfathomable presence. Finally, Enoch reached the tenth heaven, the highest and most mysterious of all. The tenth heaven was beyond all description, for it was not a realm of space or time, not a place with physical boundaries. It was the closest realm to the throne of God, the final, unapproachable place of divine presence. Enoch was enveloped in a darkness so deep it could not be compared to any shadow he had ever seen. It was not a darkness of evil, but a divine and eternal mystery that overshadowed even the brilliance of the lower heavens. In this heaven, Enoch encountered the very essence of God himself, his unfiltered presence, beyond all human understanding. There were no angels here, no forms or beings to interpret or mediate God's will. This was the ultimate mystery, the fullness of divine existence. The overwhelming sense of God's presence was so powerful that Enoch was left speechless, unable to comprehend the depths of what he was experiencing. This was not a place for knowledge or understanding. It was a place where Enoch's very being was drawn into the infinite, unknowable nature of God. It was a place where the boundaries of creation collapsed, where everything that existed, everything that had ever been created, was revealed to be a reflection of God's infinite glory. What Enoch saw and experienced in the tenth heaven was not meant to be fully understood by human minds. The symbols he recorded were fragments of a divine truth too profound to be contained in words or images. He saw a vast, swirling ocean of light, a boundless expanse of divine presence, but it was impossible for him to understand its true nature. It was as if God himself was both within and beyond the universe, infinitely close, yet infinitely distant. The entire cosmos seemed to swirl around this one truth, that everything exists to glorify the Creator, and that the mystery of existence itself was an eternal song of praise to God. Enoch's time in the tenth heaven was brief, yet it left an indelible mark on his soul. What he witnessed there was not just the culmination of his journey, but the revelation of the infinite, eternal nature of God. The tenth heaven was the final mystery, the place where time, space, and existence ceased to have meaning, where all that could be known was God Himself, and all that could be felt was the overwhelming presence of divine holiness. In these final heavens, Enoch encountered the ultimate truth, that the divine reality is so vast, so infinite, that no being, angelic or human, could ever fully comprehend its depth. These heavens were not just places, but symbols of the infinite scale of God's presence, His wisdom, and His eternal being. They reminded Enoch that the journey toward understanding God is not a journey that ever truly ends, because the divine is infinite, and human comprehension is always limited. The 8th, 9th, and 10th heavens were the ultimate mystery, realms that pointed to the boundless nature of God, realms where creation, time, and existence itself blurred into the infinite. What Enoch saw and experienced in these heavens was not meant to be fully understood, but simply to be known. An invitation to look beyond the limits of human perception and to recognize that the divine reality is infinitely greater than anything we can imagine. These heavens revealed the eternal nature of God's presence, His infinite wisdom, and His unapproachable glory, truths that are beyond human comprehension, but that invite every soul to seek, to long, and to reach for the divine. As we reach the end of this breathtaking journey through the 10 heavens, it's impossible not to be awestruck by the depth of revelation Enoch experienced. His ascent through the heavens, from the atmospheric realm of the first heaven to the infinite mystery of the 10th, offers us a profound glimpse into the vastness of divine reality. Each heaven revealed new truths about the cosmos, about the divine order, and about the soul's potential for transcendence. Through Enoch's vision, we've witnessed divine justice, cosmic harmony, wisdom, and the soul's ultimate journey towards the Creator. We've seen how the heavens, each one more mysterious and beautiful than the last, form a divine tapestry, a structure of existence governed by laws and principles far beyond our understanding. The first heavens were filled with celestial beings governing natural forces. The second and third revealed divine justice and reward. The fourth and fifth heavens showed cosmic order and divine wisdom, while the final realms, the 8th, 9th, and 10th, brought us face to face with the unfathomable mystery and glory of God Himself. Each of these heavens not only serves as a revelation about the spiritual realm, but also invites us to reflect on our own place in the grand scheme of creation. This journey asks us to consider, what do we believe about the afterlife? How do we envision the divine realms? Is there a greater cosmic order, the divine purpose unfolding, that connects us to something greater than ourselves? What is the journey of the soul? As we contemplate these mysteries, we are invited to open our hearts and minds to the possibility that there is more to our existence than we can see, touch, or measure. Enoch's vision, as ancient and mysterious as it is, remains incredibly relevant today. In a world that often feels fragmented and chaotic, these heavenly realms remind us that there is an order, a purpose, and a divine presence that governs all things. The journey of the soul through these realms offers hope and reassurance, calling us to live in alignment with the divine will, to seek truth, wisdom, and ultimately to transcend the limitations of our earthly existence. Now I challenge you, what is your perspective on the afterlife? How does Enoch's journey through the 10 heavens resonate with your beliefs about the divine? Do you feel a call to embark on your own spiritual journey toward understanding the mysteries of the cosmos? If you've enjoyed this exploration of the divine realms, please don't hesitate to engage with us. Share your thoughts, reflections, or questions in the comments below. Let's continue this conversation together. And if you found this journey through the 10 heavens to be as eye-opening and inspiring as I have, make sure to like, share, and subscribe for more deep dives into the mysteries of the cosmos.